Welcome to the deep dive for this week. Don't forget to visit the website at deepdiveau.net. Check out our socials and Patreon page at the Deep Dive AU. Subscribe via your favorite podcast app or like and subscribe at our YouTube page at the Deep Dive AU. Don't forget to check out our merchandise store at the merchandise link at our website. We can purchase new mugs and bumper stickers.
This is the Deep Dive Podcast. And here is your host, Michael Coles.
From English teacher and globe-trotting travel writer to brand nerd, Jan Fitzgerald has funneled her passion for education and storytelling into her brand personality and copywriting studio, Wild Spark. Giving yawn-inducing corporate speak and cookie-cutter branding the metaphorical middle finger, Shan uses her signature no BS approach to communication to help small brands with big ambitions craft personality-infused messaging strategy that is authentic as it's brag-worthy. She's also an avid collector of tattoos, sneakers, and questionable life choices, but not necessarily in that order. Shan Fitzgerald, welcome to the Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me, Michael.
So how do you balance the demands of running a business with the needs of your autistic child?
Oh, you know what? To be honest, sometimes not very well, sometimes really well, and other times not at all. I used to be a teacher. So for context, for 10 years, I was a teacher. And so at least I've had experience working with kids with special needs. So I'm able to bring that experience into not only how I manage Reef, but how I manage my business. So obviously I have a lot of systems in place with my business and very strong boundaries around business time and personal time. I'm very upfront with all my clients and even inquiries straight away off the bat. I do explain that I have a child with special needs and that sometimes it might require me to have to put down what I'm doing to attend to his needs, and that if that's not their jam, then I'm not the copywriter for them. So I also make sure that I'm, really open about as well as with my family, is setting my schedule up so that I am able to run a business effectively as possible, schedule out the times where I need to be on mum duty and school pickup duty, or when I need to. I have a lot of overseas clients, so sometimes I have to organize special care for Reef so I can, be on a 7 a.m. call to the US. So it's a bit of a juggle. It's a bit of a balance, but a lot of systems and a lot of really great people backing me up. It's kind of what I do.
So what unique challenges do you face as an autistic entrepreneur?
Oh, so many. Probably the biggest one for me is that type A perfectionist and being autistic. So being so focused on the small details. So sometimes I have to step back when I'm working with a brand and look at like the big picture, because I get so hooked on those tiny little things. And then that therefore sometimes it can hold a project up, or I might be a little bit late on getting things to people. It's not a lack of time management. I'm actually quite hard on myself, and that can be better. I can make it better, and always trying to deliver more and more and more for my clients, while also balancing, autistic burnout, while balancing sensory overwhelm. But the biggest one I'd have to say is like the lack of representation and diversity as an entrepreneur, especially being a female entrepreneur in the online space. There's a lot of skinny, blonde, holistic, neurotypical, success stories out there, and it can be really, really hard when you don't see yourself represented. And sometimes I'm quite hard on myself and think that I'm failing as an entrepreneur, even though I've been doing this for almost 8 years. And I said I have 10 years experience in teaching. I still sometimes feel like a failure because I can't do the same things that they're doing because of my autism, or because of my sensory needs, or because of, even my son's needs. So that's probably a real tricky thing to navigate. It's like we're all playing sport, don't get me wrong, but they're playing tennis and I'm over there doing gymnastics. It's like it's all sport, but we're playing very different games by different rules, and I have to remind myself of that sometimes.
That's fair enough. So in what ways has your experience as an autistic person informed your business practices?
That's an excellent question. And it also links back to my teaching, like how being a teacher and learning how to accommodate special needs or different learning styles in my classroom, I was able to bring that into my business. But the big thing I'd say is understanding that there are so many different neurotypes. And when you are a copywriter and a brand strategist, when you're a wordy person, you work with a lot of creatives. And let's be honest, a lot of creatives are neurodivergent, whether they know it or not. I have a lot of ADHD clients. So being able to spot, like the good old pattern recognition pops in, and I can spot when I'm like, okay, that client does not respond to emails or finds it really hard to give feedback in a written form. So making sure that I adjust for those needs has been a massive game changer for me. And also providing a safe space. Like I'm very upfront and I say there's even in the contract that people sign with me, there's even like in that onboarding document, it says, here's a note about how I work. And so I'm really upfront and honest and tell them about my diagnosis. And I ask them, please tell me if there are any barriers to learning that you have or you experience or barriers to communication so I can adapt to your needs. And I find that by providing that safe space for people, they're a lot more open and therefore we build that better client, work relationship, and then the workflow's better and I get the best out of them and they get the best out of me. So that's been kind of one of those cool things about being open and honest and using, I guess, I don't like to call them superpowers, but, I like to think of our strengths as neurodivergence and using them to my advantage and to my client's advantage as well.
Yeah, it sounds fantastic. So how do you identify and support the strengths of your autistic child?
Again, it comes back to, the same things I learned in teaching and, how to accommodate for the needs of students with special needs. But my big thing as a mum with Reef in particular is accepting him for who he is and not trying to, I guess it's really hard parenting, modern day parenting. It's trying to kind of ignore or reject some of the ways that we were raised back in the 80s and then understanding that, that was for that time without the understanding and it wouldn't apply to our child. So it's a lot of almost deconstructing my own childhood and how I was raised and going which things worked and which things would I never do to Reef. As I said, it's about adapting to him. And praising him when I do see and when I do see a strength or a special interest or something coming out, nurturing that, giving him that positive feedback. Modeling, there's a lot of modeling in our house. That's for both my child and my husband. We do a lot of modeling around that sort of stuff. But yeah, it's honestly, it's also a day by day. We've set Reef's bedroom up in a way that can be what we call one of his ways to regulate is to have dark room time. So he knows when he's overstimulated. He says dark room time. So we go in, we close the curtains, we pull the sheet over. He's got a bed that's like a canopy, sort of like a tent. So we pull that over, we put the twinkle lights on, he gets under, he has all his squishmallows. We put the sparkly lights on and give him his little space. And that's like his little cave where he can go and regulate. And we've made him know that that's not a punishment. In fact, that's his safe space. And that has actually been something we've been working on for about 3 years now. And now he can do it independently and say, I need dark room, I need time out. He goes and does it. And when he comes out, he'll say, I feel better now. And we're like, awesome. And yeah, so we let him have that space as well.
Okay, that's awesome. So are there specific resources or communities you rely on that cater for both autistic entrepreneurs and parents?
You know what? Sadly, no. There really isn't a lot out there. I know that within the school mum group that my child and I are part, I'm one of the few working mums and I'm the only one who runs her own business full time, as an entrepreneur. So it's actually really quite hard to connect with, with mothers or other parents who are in my situation. The one person I probably look to the most, though, is a fellow entrepreneur. Her name is Cherie Clonan, and she runs the Digital Picnic
Yeah,
in
I've heard of her.
Melbourne.
She does a really good job down there.
Yep, Cherie is amazing. She's one of my close business friends. We've known each other for 8 years. And Cherie being, I'm sure she doesn't mind. She is an autistic CEO. She has neurodivergent children. So we have a private chat and that we message each other constantly. So she's probably my go-to for when I'm sort of saying like, this is the scenario, and we bounce things off each other as both entrepreneurs and mothers. So I'd say Cherie is probably my closest sort of resource when it comes to balancing both worlds. So, but yeah, I'd like to think that we could work on a space where there is a little bit more like that. There is also another amazing woman who has also got the neurodivergent business. I'll have to send you the link to her. Her name's Adina.
Are you talking about the Neurodivergent Collective? Because I'm part of that.
Yes, is Adina.
That's right. Yeah, she's a fabulous person.
She is absolutely wonderful. I was on her podcast a little while ago, and I know what she's trying to accomplish is in line with that. So she's doing incredible work as well. But yeah, sadly, they're kind of I guess groundbreakers in their own way. There's not a lot out there for us.
Yeah. So how important is routine in both your business operations and at home with your child?
It's everything. It is absolutely everything to me. And fun fact, I have an undiagnosed ADHD husband who is also a daredevil. So I'm all about the routine and the planning, and he's the one that'll come in and just set it on fire and go, hey, let's just, So it is a bit of a challenge, but for me, even when I was a child, routine is everything. And I think that's probably why I was even drawn to teaching for such a long time, because of that consistent routine, like what to expect. Where when I worked in the corporate world, that was really difficult for me, not having the standard routine because, things change. But yeah, routine is everything, both in our personal life. I live and die by my diary. I'm an old-fashioned girl. I still have a paper diary that I live by and I fill out every week, and I have everything mapped out. I have a wonderful VA who helps me keep things managed, and my having certain days for meetings, certain days for things. Having routines. We have everything printed out. We've got everything on the fridge. We have all the visual cues. Routine is absolutely crucial to my ability to navigate, and also reefs. And my husband Dan has learnt to understand that when he does want to blow things up, he's getting much better at learning how to accommodate, to let us know that there is a change coming up. He does have a trip or he does have something, and he's gotten a lot better at helping us navigate through that, because it is difficult.
Yeah. So what strategies do you implement to manage sensory sensitivities in your workplace or in your sort of personal studio?
So that's it. I've built my own personal studio, which I understand is a privilege that not everyone has. But when we bought the house that we bought, this was one of the sort of non-negotiables about it, was to build a space for me where it was completely set up for me to be able to do my best work. So everything from the particular lighting, the painting, you can't see it, but over there, I have a row of canisters filled with all the different sweets and lollies for when I need that sense. I like sour lollies to get that sensory input and feedback sometimes when I'm thinking. I've got the curtains there. I can make it dark if I need to. I have in my basket over there, I have my weighted blanket. If I need that, I can put that on my lap. I work best with really, this is going to sound crazy, but really loud music blasting in my ears. So I've got my Sony headphones are here, my noise cancelers. Everything about this space is actually designed for me to do my best work. And yeah, I love my little space. It's not little, it's actually quite big, but there's a couch there. So if I feel like sitting in a chair doesn't work, I can go and sit on the couch. I have laptops, so I can take my laptop, this is a sit stand desk, so I can, if I feel like I need to move and do that, I can get rid of the chair and I can lift up my desk easily with just the press of a button. So I've done everything I can to make it as sensory friendly as possible for me, which is
That
great.
sounds fantastic. It looks like a great space too.
I do love it.
So, how do you advocate for your child's needs while also building your business? Because I know it's the business is sort of like, the way you want it now. How do you actually manage that?
It's just part of my routine almost. So even before we jumped on this chat, we've had a bit of a, one of those up and down mornings with Reef. He was up at 5 a.m. and he was very flappy and stimmy. So before I could do my work with you today, I, fired off an email to his teacher just going, heads up, this is what the morning's been like. He's been up since 5. He may need a rest or a sleep. He may need to sit on a peanut ball. So, it's that constant keeping up, juggling and keeping up communication with the school. So then that way I don't get a phone call at 10:30 or 11 o'clock going, Reef's a little bit, what's going on here? I find that if I'm proactive about things, then it means it has less of a negative impact on my business and my ability to run my business, within my time slot. But another part of my business, I said, is being very open and honest and articulate about Reef and about the challenges we face. And I often have a lot of parents, a lot of mothers, clients, or people who follow me on social media slide into my DMs, and they tell me that their child's just been diagnosed, and we talk it out. And I'm very open and honest and help them as well navigate that process. But the biggest thing is honestly just, I feel like if we're honest and upfront and we do advocate for ourselves, then our children will learn how to see that advocacy for them and that they aren't alone and they're not going through this on their own. But yeah, it's just one of those things. There are some days where I get a call and I have to go and, advocate for Reef and do something, and I have to put this on hold. And then there are other days where if I am proactive enough, then I don't necessarily have to do that. But I am also in the process of writing a book, which is for parents navigating the, those stages of that diagnosis, because I know, and as when your child first gets a diagnosis, you don't really get a lot from the doctor. You get a few pamphlets and a piece of paper, and it's quite overwhelming, and you don't know how to start advocating for your child. And so I'm writing a book at the moment. I have been for a few years now. I'm hoping to get it published soon, which takes parents through that so that they can become better advocates for their kids, from a place of empowerment and not shame. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually reading it. So, have you faced any stigma or misunderstanding in your business community as an autistic woman, and how do you address that?
Oh, absolutely. That dry, direct tone of voice sometimes is really difficult to translate into text. Some of my humor sometimes doesn't translate, while, some of the client work that I've done, the clients love it. But sometimes when you put your client work out in the world, especially if it's quite personality fueled or polarizing or a rebel brand, some people don't like that. And it's like, that's okay. But that wasn't written with you. You're not the ideal audience. But on social media, everyone loves to give their opinion. So, I've been accused of being a lot of different things. I always just I address it. I'm always really upfront by saying, like, thank you for taking the time to give me your thoughts. I'll take it on board. I always will also give, my perspective of things. But it is a juggle. It's a constant juggle in regards to how we communicate, which is why I try to balance out when I'm writing, trying to use punctuation and different styles to kind of denote that tone. But also, I think the big thing is also making sure that I've built a personality where people know that, yes, I might come across very, down the line sometimes, but I also have a genuine heart of gold, and I do have that teacher side of me, that I'm not here to be nasty or a mean girl or point out people's flaws. I'm simply here to educate and to teach. And another thing that I've come into contact with is, again, a lack of representation. It's really hard to get gigs like speaking, and there's a lot of the sea of sameness at the same networking events, at the same conferences, and when people hear, oh, autistic, they have a preconceived notion in their head, or they think that then their target audience doesn't want to hear about that because their target audience is only interested in learning how to make 7 figures a month. And it's really, really hard to kind of explain that having diversity and having a multitude of voices and neurodivergent people up there speaking and sharing their experience, it can actually really help neurotypicals as well, or they might learn a few things that they weren't aware of. So it's a bit of a juggle. I said it's really hard to go to networking events when you have severe anxiety and the sensory overwhelm is too much. So there's a few things I have to juggle that make it really difficult, actually.
Yeah. But we get through it. So we accept it in a positive way. So how do you foster an inclusive environment for both your child and in your business?
For my child, it is because we do just have the one, and Dan Reef and I, we're a tight little unit. So, we make sure that, we have our family rules, and, we make sure that we adhere to them and follow them. And, we highlight each other's strengths and we help each other with our weaknesses, and we try not to operate from a place of shame. I think that's a big one. Really making sure that our house is laid out so that it's inclusive for Reef, and for any of his little Audie friends who come over and play. Just sort of like really balancing all of those elements for Reef. And then in my business, making my business inclusive around the different, like the people that I work with. I work with clients. I said I have ADHD clients, I have autistic clients, I have clients where English is not their first language. I try, and no matter who I'm working with, as I said, it's all about, I have a whole section where I ask, how do you learn best? What can I do to accommodate you? Would you like to give me feedback verbally, written? Would you like to have a meeting with me? I don't put caps on things. I try and give them enough opportunity to be able to show up as their authentic selves, so that they can contribute and participate in the process, because ultimately it's their brand, it's their business. They're the ones that need to be executing whatever I write for them. But if they haven't been empowered, just like kids at school, if kids are not empowered in the classroom to do things independently, then they're not going to do it. And it's the same with the businesses that I work with. So I do everything I can to, as I said, create a space where whatever their needs are within reason. I work with a lot of international clients, so I can't jump on a plane and be in California or Kentucky or New York. But yeah, I do everything I can to make the experience as inclusive as possible for them. Yeah,
it sounds fantastic. So what technologies or tools do you actually find useful for use in managing your business and also family life?
So I use Dubsado as my customer relationship management software, which is awesome. So there's a lot of automation. So it's basically been able to take my system that I had, my emails, my processes, my SOPs, and actually automate it. So that's all there. And as I said, I have a wonderful VA who is a Dubsado specialist, so she can manage that back end for me. So that's a really big help. I find Loom is excellent for client walkthroughs. So once I've finished doing a brand fundies guide, a tone of voice and personality guide for a client, I'll record a Loom, walking them through the pages and explaining things. And I make sure that, therefore it has like the subtitles and they can choose what speed they want to listen to it. Even my online forms, before you work with me, there's some pre-work and I've set them up so that you can do them. I say to people that some of them are quite in depth. So if you are an ADHDer who maybe just needs to do things, block at a time. You can do a little bit, save it, and come back to the draft. It doesn't all have to be done in one go. Or if you want to do a real deep dive on it, you can sit there and do that. But yeah, everything from Spotify, Pinterest, Canva. I have an awful lot of little techie things. Grammarly is a fantastic tool to be using for checking, like spell checking and grammar and things like that. And I know a lot of people are a bit about AI. I actually see AI as I don't use it in my client work, my creative client work I do on my own, but I will use AI as a checker. So I'll be like, hey, this is what I've written. This is my audience. This was my prerogative. This was my goal. Have I hit that? Can you give me feedback for improvement? And I actually think AI for people with additional needs, I think it is an excellent tool that can really just scaffold and help people. So while I might not use it in my creative work, I do use it in certain ways. And I do encourage people that if they do have, a barrier, that it's perfectly fine to use it. Just remember that you don't just take what it spits out first. You're going to have to learn to massage it a bit. You're going to have to teach the machine how to speak like you and to bring that element of human into it.
Okay. So what advice would you give to other autistic women considering entrepreneurship while raising autistic children?
If you are in a position to do it and you truly love what you do, and if you're like me and you're able to take your special interests and your talent and your skill and your passion and combine it all and make it work, then I say do it. It's a wonderful job. If I need to take time off, I can schedule it in. It does give me more freedom than I ever did teaching, which was vital in the early years. I left teaching when Reef got diagnosed, and he got diagnosed at 3. So for me, I already had my business. So giving me that freedom to be able to step aside and go into a business where I knew I could make money, where I could still have the freedom to meet Reef's needs. I believe every woman should have a plan B up their sleeves. And that was huge for me. But also, you're going to have to set boundaries. Having boundaries in place is such a huge thing. And also if you are neurodivergent yourself, you're going to have to manage the energy, that energy tax that we pay. So, what you give to your clients, you've got to balance it out with what you give to your child. But I said, if you're passionate about what you do and you love it and you've got the means and the privilege and the support around you to do it, then I say go for it, because it is so rewarding.
Okay, and final question that we like to ask in the Deep Dive podcast, which we ask all of our guests. In 30 seconds or less, if you have one bit of advice to give to people, what would that be?
To give to any person, or to give to, goodness, be yourself. Honestly, life is far too short to pretend to be something that you're not. Show up as your authentic self. Teach your child how to show up as their authentic self. And yeah, just don't be afraid. Be the voice that people like you need to hear, really. Yeah.
And on that note, thank you very much, Sian Fitzgerald, for being part of the Deep Dive podcast today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Michael. It was awesome.
For more information, go to wildsparkcopy.com or go to her Instagram at wildspark.co.